in these particular areas.
I will.
This is dependent for my electoral success. Then if that's what comes of it, then I would be very happy.
I will say you said you got you educated yourself on all this mainly through academia, right? I will say don't just limit yourself there because a lot of these corporations lobby politicians so that the information that's delivered through academia is limited.
Well, I'm not.
So
My
that
university is not publicly. We're a privately run.
oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I would say don't just limit yourself there.
Look, my point is not just about like academia, because I realize that academia.
Oh no, I know it's not about academia. I'm just saying don't just limit yourself to just informing yourself within academia or within like legacy media. You gotta expand and diversify because those are usually endorsed by the corporations.
Here's my problem. As much as I appreciate you guys being here, having watched the growth of alternative media, I've noticed that I see alternative media like it was a lot like how in the early 90s and the early 2000s the internet was seen as this like radical experiment in democratic communication and mass connectivity, and over time we saw the internet fall into these same pitfalls as previous systems of mass communication. And I worry that I see a lot of alternative media doing the same thing. Like Alex Jones is alternative media. Jimmy fucking Dore is alternative media. Like people who run the Daily Wire.
Hang on, Alex Jones is a shady guy, and his points are easily debunkable. What's your problem with Jimmy Dore?
God, how much time do you have? But
we have all the time in the world.
A lot of If you want, we can stand up, or you want to stay sitting down. We can change positions.
I'll stay seated. I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. Yeah. No. The stuff about the Medicare for all march.
Here, let me get a little closer.
The stuff about forced to vote. My general feeling with, and this is not like all left alternative media. There's left alternative media I like. I have a lot of respect for people like Kyle Kalinske. I have a lot of respect for them. Some of the commentators, not all, but some of the commentators on the Young Turks, I have a lot of respect for them. Some of the problems I have with going left alternative media is a feeling like, and it's true of a lot of left activism, is being so accustomed to being out of power that you don't know what to do with it once you have it. And it's like the left it positions itself in opposition, that it's the activists holding the signs outside Congress. And it's what we're doing right now. But it means that when you have power, when you're finally given that infinity stone, you don't know what to do with it. And it means that, like, we have members of Congress here, and we have an entire faction to the left that are devoted to screaming at our own members of Congress, not understanding how Congress fuck their words. And we had someone here days ago, a guy named Nick Brana from the People's Party, who was like arguing with Ilhan Omar and Cody Bush and Diana Preston.
I have my own issues with Nick Brana, but I don't know if it's for the same reasons that you have. But we don't have to get into that.
My point is that you have cadres of people very heavily online, very heavily into some alt media, that I think push people to not understand how wielding power from an inside and outside strategy works. To say, when you are outside the halls of power like I am, there are certain things you can do. And when you are inside the halls of power, there are other equally necessary things that you can do.
Okay.
And these are different, we all have our place in the movement, but these are different responsibilities. And to say everyone should be the activist is not understanding how dual power works. Not understanding how movement power works. That not everyone holds signs. Some people hold signs. Some people maneuver inside Congress. Some people knock on doors to get other people elected to Congress. Some people buy us food. They don't even have to be here. By the way, if you send food, you're like the greatest. You're the greatest of all time if you send food.
If she should have taken it, she should have
Everyone has a place, but they're not all the same places. They expect everyone to do the same thing and to say, well, why aren't you doing the same thing? than I am,
Oh, man, we
just
had
ends
already
up pushing
raised
people
6
out and making us less effective. And that's some of my frustration. Some of where I see all media pushing people out.
Okay, so your problems are with how some don't understand how Congress works.
They don't
And-
understand the diversity of tactics. You know?
Amen.
Okay, where did you learn that
One
from?
person that
Where's
she
that
has.
That they don't understand how Congress works? Is it from listening to them or listening to other people criticizing them?
Mostly from listening to them. Mostly from, granted, it's anecdotal evidence. It's never the best evidence.
Okay, so
but
what is, for example, Jimmy Dore not understand about how Congress works?
I'll give you an example. Like with forced to vote, it was a perfect encapsulation.
Okay.
Where forced to vote is a different issue, and so I don't. You know, we're here to talk about homelessness.
Which they also could have withheld their vote to extend the evictions, but
Yeah. On the issue of like the forced to vote over the speaker election, it felt like if we ran through the argument chain, eventually we reached, well, you know, you should do a floor vote because then even if Medicare for all doesn't pass, you get people on the roll call saying whether they support it or not, and that has political value because it allows for targeting of primary candidates. And there were like two primary problems that I never heard addressed. They both came down to fundamental misunderstandings about how Congress works. One is when you do like a whip count and you know extremely well how many votes you're going to get on the bill before it even comes to the floor, you do the whip count. Let's say you get 208 votes, you're 10 short. What that means is you know with mathematical certainty that bill's not going to pass. Unless like suddenly 10 members actually lied to you about their position on the matter. That does not pass. What that means is that let's say you're a member of Congress who like personally doesn't like Medicare for all, but you're from a left-wing district and you're worried about re-election and you want to cover your ass. What you do is say, I'll be the 209th vote in favor. And you know what? That vote doesn't matter because you aren't the marginal vote that passes it. So you can look good in front of your constituents.
so that's for the floor vote, right?
Oh yeah, that would be like the floor vote. The point is that pressuring to do a floor vote only reveals
Public opinion, I think, changed.
my point was only that pressuring to reveal people's preferences only works if they think they are the marginal vote that actually decides the issue.
You don't mind if we walk over here because it's getting a little loud.
If someone knows that they are not the marginal vote on the matter, then the only thing they have to think about is messaging. It's what will my constituents think? What will my donors think? What message will I be sending with my vote? If you're not the 218th vote that decides whether something lives or dies, and you know that because they've done the whip, then all you really need to think about is what will help me get reelected. And at that point, it doesn't reveal a true preference. It just reveals what you want to do to cover your own ass. Maybe you're someone who doesn't support Medicare for all if it comes to push comes to shove, but you're willing to look good in front of your constituents. So since it wouldn't pass, since it would have gotten like 150 votes, there could have been some wolves in sheep's clothing that say, oh yeah, sure, I'll vote for it because I know it won't pass. But when it actually becomes push comes to shove, I'm not going to do it. It was the same way with the Republicans, like with repealing Obamacare.
But wouldn't it be revealing if they don't actually vote for it, like when it's the actual thing?
That would be revealing, but ultimately, like that requires Americans to have an attention span of years and years and years. Remember, 3 years ago you flipped your vote on this. They can always say, oh well, I had a change of heart. Oh well, times were different. Oh well, something.
In the middle of a pandemic, though, they didn't want to vote for single-payer health care.
Yeah,
That would signal a lot.
if they can say, oh, we were during the pandemic,
And there would be massive pressure. There's supposed to be massive pressure from, because it doesn't just stop there with just getting the floor vote. The supposed progressive politicians are supposed to be spreading the word, telling people to put pressure on their Congress people and senators.
and they have been for months and months and months.
I know, but I'm talking about like for any issue.
Yeah, you tell people.
Like here they just did this like for like last minute. With the March for Medicare for All, they were completely silent, all of them.
The reason that this was done last minute is because it was at the figurative last minute that we found out we didn't have the votes. The understanding from the House.
No, we just went over how they knew evictions would have happened. But whatever, we'll go down. That's going down that rabbit hole we went in last time.
Yeah.
All right, but the thing, what was being proposed with forced to vote is so that we could at least get a speaker that would put it for a floor vote, right? You understand that
My
part?
point is that the utility of a floor vote is predicated on the idea that it reveals people's policy preferences on Medicare for all. And my point is that it does not do that because most congressional votes by all but the marginal member are acts of messaging and not acts of policy preferences. So like for example, with the Republicans with ACA repeal, you know how before the Republicans actually had a trifecta, they tried to repeal Obamacare like 60-something times, and every time it passed and then Obama vetoed it, and Obama vetoed it over and over and over again. And that was just how things were. And then finally, the Republicans had the power, and suddenly a bunch of Republicans, thankfully, like obviously, got something very shy about actually following through on their previous votes. All suddenly, their fervor wasn't there anymore because they knew it might actually happen, and they knew they would suffer politically if they actually repealed it. They knew there would be a
And it was also approved by Big Pharma. Like a lot of pharmaceutical companies and Wall Street approved of Obamacare. So
my point is just that they voted to repeal it over and over again when they knew that it didn't have actual consequences. And then when push came to shove, their preferences suddenly shifted because they were very politically nervous about the impacts of repealing the Affordable Care Act and putting that shit in place. And look, I'm glad that they had a change of heart for whatever reason, whether it was political pressure or anything else. But the point is just that it's the difference between when you can vote knowing there's no consequences to it, and when you can vote knowing that your vote will actually cause it to become law. People's preferences can very suddenly switch between enacting a policy they want to enact and enacting a policy they think will help get them elected.
why should it stop them if there's going to be people that won't be taking it seriously?
Sorry.
Why should it stop them if there's going to be people that won't take it seriously? Like you're saying that some people will just do it just for optics, and then when it actually matters, why does that really matter?
Because the idea of forcing the vote was that it will force members to reveal their genuine preferences, and that members that don't vote for it, we can go in primary. That was the strategy.
But what's wrong with exposing that?
The point is that it doesn't expose them because it allows them to vote yes when it doesn't matter. Make them vote yes.
Well,
when
good.
it matters.
It's good that they vote
we
yes
have
when it
the
matters.
votes, when we have, 215, 216, when we're doing the whip and we suddenly get to 218, then make them make good on their promise. But until then, asking them to vote yes on a bill when it'll get 150 votes and then die just means that they get to vote yes without any consequences, and they get to look good in front of their constituents when they might.
So at least they voted yes. Why is that a
doesn't-
problem?
Because you want them to vote yes when it will matter. Because the point of a Medicare for all vote is not to.
Well,
let
at
people
least
look good in
they
front of their
still voted yes.
But how many people got health care because they voted yes? Nil. It only matters when it passes.
So at
So
least they
I-
stood back. Then the ones that voted against it will be shown. They'll be
The ones
exposed.
who vote against it in that case are voting against it because they live in districts.
We
where they
go
don't help
after the
people.
150.
And my point is, there are districts where somehow you have Democrats. I promise you, I wish that every Democrat in the country was a Medicare.
And if it goes
I
yes,
wish.
then it goes to the Senate.
And my point is, let's say you go to Joe Manchin and you say, like, hey, Joe Manchin, why didn't you vote for Medicare for all? And he says, well, because I'm from West Virginia. Okay, anyone from West Virginia, I promise you, I can't do a good West Virginia accent. He says, well, I'm from West Virginia, and folks in West Virginia
That's pretty
don't
good.
love socialist medicine. And then, you know what? He actually does. I hate to say it, but there are places in this country where voting no on Medicare for all helps you get elected. And in those places, a bunch of, like, socialists like me going and begging people to pressure their senator, not as effective. There are places where it works. There are places where it doesn't work. And the big shift has to be you have to get to a critical mass where you can get 218 members who either have that fire in their belly or feel like they
You're
have
speaking
to.
on hypotheticals here. Like it won't work in this area. Like
I'm
so.
speaking about what has to be done. And yes,
The majority of the country wants wants universal health care
The
now.
majority, you need the majority.
It's an overwhelming majority of the
You need the
people. If
majority
people
and a
aren't
majority
voting
of
for
congressional
universal health care, then those people are not representing
Unfortunately.
their constituents.
Unfortunately, our democracy
And if
is
they're not
very
actually representing them,
representative
then
of the average
that should trigger people to perform direct action.
Unfortunately, our democracy is not set up to be representative of the average voter, because you don't just need a majority of Americans across the country, you need large enough majorities in a majority of congressional districts that enough members feel like their hide is on the line if they don't vote for it. You need 200 and something, 218 districts where members feel like if they don't vote for this, their ass is on the line in the next election.
Look, if they vote against it, that's why you go after them, you scare the shit out of them, and you protest and apply maximum pressure. The majority of the country wants it.
It's not just because
That's a lame excuse, like what you're giving, just because some people won't take it seriously. What? So what?
I think if you
They're
go
voting
to,
yes.
If you go to Abigail Spanberger and you say, well, the majority of Americans support Medicare for all, she says, well, look, I don't represent all Americans. I represent suburban Virginia. Talk to my constituents.
All right, this is
That's what you have to do.
this is all. These talking points are exactly what Sam Cedar was saying. And then you don't know who that is?
I don't know the relevance of Sam Cedar to this situation.
It's exactly what he was saying. It's exactly what he was saying. He's like, oh, Jimmy Dore doesn't understand how Congress works.
Like a smart guy. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, he got wrecked by people who actually do understand Congress and actually understand direct action. He got destroyed by Breonna Joy Gray.
Oh no, he got ratioed on Twitter.
No, not on Twitter. He got destroyed by Breonna Joy Gray.
I'm sorry.
In-
Look,
in a debate.
I appreciate the work that Breonna Joy Gray did for Bernie, but I'm sorry she was wrong about that. As it happens, it turns out that Noam Chomsky was right about.
No, Chomsky was wrong because he doesn't understand the urgency of what people want because he's out of touch.
The degree of urgency is irrelevant to the ability.
He
to
compared
pass
it to people wanting ice cream. He compared people dying from diseases and being inundated with that with people wanting ice cream when they wanted health care.
In terms of the degree of political efficacy in getting something through Congress, the degree of people's personal desperation doesn't win votes. And it sucks that it doesn't. I wish that members of Congress were good-hearted people that cared when they saw someone dying and cared more. They cared more about that than about someone wanting ice cream. But I'm sorry, to most members of Congress, and it sucks shit that this is the case.
Then get them out and expose them.
And the problem
It
is
should be
that-
power to the people, not be apologetic to the Congress people.
I said it sucks shit, my dude. These people are not good people.
Well
Most
then,
members of
well
Congress
then,
are not
fuck
good.
them.
And we're trying to get. And look, I replaced. my
Expose
membership.
them. Tell
That's
your
what I did in
community.
my own district. We got our member of Congress to resign prematurely because she didn't want to go through a primary and potentially lose her seat. So she retired, and we got a solid progressive vote in her place, who's been lobbying for Medicare for all, who's been lobbying to end the eviction moratorium, who's been lobbying for getting us out of foreign wars consistently. I did that job in the only district where I can vote as a citizen of the United States, and more people need to do that in their districts. But I'm sorry, forcing the vote on Medicare for all doesn't reveal those members. All it reveals is
Who cares? It's about pressuring Congress.
Because it
It's about the
doesn't
people. It's about the
because
working
it
class
doesn't
people
cause-
pressuring
because-
Congress.
Because if you, let's say you're a member of Congress from a conservative district, how does forcing the vote put pressure on you? Why do you
From
feel
where? A
compelled?
conservative district?
Let's say you're a
All
Democrat.
right, so what? The majority of the country, even a lot of conservatives, want universal health care.
Do they want it enough to not vote for their Republicans? Because ultimately, it's not just about whether it's not just about whether your constituent says they want something, it's about whether they're willing to vote
It doesn't
against
matter.
it.
We keep pressuring it until they
What
do
does
it.
What does the word pressure mean? Does pressure mean
Getting out like this, like exactly what you're doing here today.
The reason that this pressures politicians is because you have enough Americans that are willing to stake their votes on the issue of creating millions and millions of homelessness.
But it doesn't matter who is in office. It doesn't matter who it is. We will pressure whoever is there.
And my point is that in terms of getting the votes, we can.
And
see
you're aware that the
it
force to
matters
vote was
so
from
much.
the DSA handbook, right? It was in
Yeah.
their handbook
I'm
about
a
withholding their
card-carrying
vote.
member. I am a card-carrying member of the DSA.
Okay.
Personally, I did not agree with that tactic. And there are people in DSA that agree with it, and we vote democratically at the National Convention, and we send delegates, and sometimes we're going to disagree. And I happen to disagree with my comrades who put that in the DSA handbook about, this is how you apply political pressure. I don't think that would have worked.
All right. Do you personally have health care?
Do do I have healthcare through my parents. I'm 21, so.
All right, so you clearly don't understand the urgency that a lot of Americans feel
This
who
is
don't.
not about my.
No,
personal-
you just don't understand the situation then. You're not able to place yourself in other people's shoes and feel that urgency.
I reject the idea that it is impossible to care about people. For example, like you are not black, for example, but I
Okay.
believe that you care about Black Lives Matter. I believe in your heart that you do. I believe that I do. I believe I would put money on every single white and Hispanic person here cares about Black Lives Matter, even if they're not in that position themselves, because I believe in radical empathy.
It doesn't mean that you went through all their experiences.
And it doesn't. But I don't. The whole point of empathy is being able to empathize with things you haven't gone through yourself. Otherwise, that's just sympathy.
Then that's why
Sympathy
you
is
don't
when you're
understand the
going-
urgency then.
I reject the idea that people are incapable of empathy. If I thought like you that people were incapable of empathy, I would be much more cynical about politics. I would be much more cynical about the possibility of ever getting anything done, because most Americans do not suffer from most issues
Bro, you're just-
that we have to confront in politics. So the whole point is getting them to care about stuff that they haven't gone through. That's most of politics. Most people.
If you didn't have healthcare right now, would you be saying the same exact same thing you're saying right now?
If I didn't have
And you had a
healthcare
disease
right
and you can't treat it because you can't afford to treat it.
then I would hope to God that we did everything we could to most effectively get Medicare for all in place right now. And my understanding of the issues would
And
be
how
that
would
what
you do
you're
that?
proposing would not be the most effective way to do that. It would be counterproductive to my immediate.
It's counterproductive to just be nice to politicians and not get them to and get them and then vote for vote for speakers that won't even put it for a floor vote. That's completely counterproductive.
Putting it for a floor vote when it won't pass isn't.
You're saying it's just because there's going to be some people that'll vote for it when it won't matter. Who the fuck cares? At least they're voting for it.
Because what does that do? And then what happens?
That they're on the
And then
right
what
side.
happens? And then what happens? Do people get health care? No. They just get to pretend that they were on the right side.
It's a step in the right direction.
No, it's not. What step?
If they're pretending, guess what? They're pretending the right way, but they're doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. If they're pretending.
No, game this out consequentially. What happens after the vote fails? What do you do next?
If the vote fails, then we continue to pressure them. What are we doing here? We're still trying to pressure them with the March for Medicare for All. Keep
And then
pressuring.
what do you do after that?
Keep pressuring. That's what we'll keep doing.
And then how do you determine that will get us to 218 members?
By telling them we're not going to vote for you, you're going to lose your job.
They already know that.
All right.
You've already told them that. You've played that card.
Then keep exposing them to people. Things are going to keep getting worse and worse and worse, and then people that aren't feeling the urgency now are going to feel it pretty soon.
Dude, this is not. If you look historically at like big bills in this country,
They didn't pass the New Deal because people were being nice to politicians. It's because Franklin Delano Roosevelt was scared shitless by people who were protesting.
I'm not talking about nice.
And there was a point in which only one person in Congress supported the right for women to vote.
I believe you. Their name escapes me. They were from Montana. The woman
It
from
took one politician.
My point is, Jesus Christ. I mean, there were many members of Congress, because there were like 30-something states that had passed women's suffrage before Congress did it themselves. Many members from those states supported women's suffrage, because they were from states where women could already vote on a state-by-state level. Women's suffrage is not the point, though. If you look at things like the Voting Rights Act, or you look at things like the Civil Rights Act of '64, or you look at things like passing even Obamacare, which problems with it is better than the Bush era system. If you look at basically every big bill that has skated by contentiously in this country, it didn't get by just on people being angry in the streets. That was important as hell. But that was one of a diversity of tactics. And if you're out, like you're in the ether or on the internet.
The thing is, we have to do. The thing is, like, look. Here's one thing I will agree with you. Let me say something. Here's what I agree with you. Going out into the street like this, like applying pressure, because I was a little vague on that. That's not enough either, because we also have to be attacking these corporations directly with our pockets, which is to not give those corporations our money. And so people have to also be opting out of the system and informing people in their community about how corporations are the problem. So it can't just be direct action, like people on the ground, like that's fine, but then that's limited, right? Because what if we're out here and they're still not listening? Then that's when we all agree to not buy from Amazon, to not buy from Target, to not buy from all these other corporations.
There's a few folks over there from the Amazon Workers Union.
Okay.
I empathize with that point about like if you want to pressure corporate entities, stand up for people like that that are fighting for a union at their Amazon warehouse. You do have to like put your you have to put your money where your mouth is, essentially.
You gotta do some sacrifices, and then organize with your community to have some alternatives, like encourage people in your community to grow their own food, and you guys can trade food with each other. You know, some people in your neighborhood can grow a certain type of food, another part can grow another type of food.
If there's one thing I can say about like what you were right about, you talked about like talking to members of your fellow community.
Yeah.
And I could not agree more that if we are going to end up pressuring enough members, even if they don't believe it, to think that we can get a majority for Medicare for All through political pressure and fear for members losing their jobs. Because some members will be good enough that they support it because they support it in their hearts.
Yeah.
And some members will just support it for political pressure. Whatever we can do to get over that 50% plus one line, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Once we can
And
get a
here's the
majority.
thing too, though.
But my point of that is, if you're talking to your neighbors, if you're talking to people in your congressional district, talk to them about how necessary that is. So it's not just you calling a member of Congress, it's all of them calling their members too. If we're going to get to a majority through public pressure, that's how it's going to happen.
Here's the thing too, though. And this is why I've been saying it doesn't matter who's in office, and it's because our elections are privately owned, and they do everything they can from preventing like progressives from winning. And when they do win, they often sell out and do a lot to secure their position in their career, rather than making it like what AOC said about bringing the ruckus. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a one-term congressperson, as long as you're doing the right thing, it doesn't matter.
My point is, that sort of like cynicism, sometimes I feel cynical like that, and I get sometimes people feel cynical like that, and it's cathartic. It's cathartic to say, fuck this shit. I've been out here 3 days. I have
not at all if you're able to rally people behind you.
It's catharsis to say, well, God damn it, the system's so rigged that nothing I can do is gonna unrig this system, because they've bought out all the members, and even when we win,
there is a way. We just have to organize better and do the things that I was just mentioning, like direct action, agreeing to opt out of the system, not give the corporations any more power.
My point is that's cathartic. It's cathartic.
Inform people about how our elections are privately owned, because then people won't be putting so much hope, wasting so much time on politicians that aren't going to fight for you.
We see how much elections can matter, because you know what? You know why we're out here? Because a handful of moderates, a handful, was enough to kill the ability of the Rules Committee under Jim McGovern to pass this eviction moratorium and put it on the floor for a vote. A handful of members. Maxine Waters was talking about this. Jim McGovern was talking about this. AOC was talking about this. That was the margin. They only needed 5 or 6 members. 5, 6, 7. We don't know exactly how many, but just a smidge of the Democratic caucus, along with every single Republican, was able to kill the thing.
And that's always going to be the case.
That's why elections matter.
No, that's always going to be the case. That's always going to be. There's always going to be. Oh, there's a margin of people. That's because they're not feeling the heat. They're not feeling pressure from people.
But you know what would have fixed it? You know what would have fixed it?
What, having a whole bunch of progressives? We don't have time for that. And then a whole bunch of them are going to be making excuses for why they can't do certain things
I'll give an example.
in Congress.
Corrupt as shit member of Congress, Richie Neal, first district of Massachusetts. He had a primary from a guy named Alex Morse. And Alex Morse he got 40% of the vote in Western Mass, in like the Springfield area, the Berkshires, that area of Massachusetts. If he had won that, I don't know what Richie Neal's take on all this is. I know he's a corrupt member. Maybe he is. Maybe he isn't one of the members that's holding this up. But he's in the pocket of like the health services industry. He's taking a ton of money from them. Very corrupt dude. But let's say that he was or wasn't one of the members that was holding this up. This is an example. If he had lost his primary, he had been kicked out of Congress and we'd gotten a progressive in his stead, that would be one fewer member. And when we're talking about 7, 8, maybe even 6 members that are the difference between success and failure here, 1 is a hell of a lot. That's 1/6 of the way there. We're 1/7, that's even 12% of the way there. We do that a handful of more times. We get just a handful of more Cori Bushes. We get a handful of
Cori
more
Bush, who knew about what was happening, and then she came out here at the last second.
We came out here at the last second. I came out here. You came out here. We all came out here at the last second because we found out at the last second that we had these traitors in our ranks. We had these snakes in our ranks that previously said, "Oh yeah, I'll be there for the vote. I'll be there for the vote. I'll be there for the vote." And the last second said,
have you
"Oh,
thought
actually, I
that
won't be
maybe
there for the vote."
people like Cori Bush are just doing this to give people a false sense of hope and just optics? Just
No, I don't think that.
what?
If you
All right.
want- if you
All right,
want-
if you could make that argument though, just like make the argument for a possibility for that.
make an argument for why I think she's here in earnest.
No, a counter argument to it. Why would you think someone would say that?
Why? I mean, you're asking me to argue something I don't believe here.
No, I know, yeah, but then you can present that, you can give the counter argument, and then you can explain why that's
All right.
wrong.
Yeah, no. If I was Machiavellian, if I thought that everyone was just being completely cynical in all their behavior here, I would say, oh, Cori Bush knew from the beginning, she had the inside scoop. She knew these members weren't going to vote for it, and she's manufacturing this for clicks or for donor money or to raise her own stature. But you know what? She is a freshman member from the 1st District of Missouri. Unless something weird happens in Missouri politics, she's not going to become a Missouri senator. I wish in a better world, but Missouri is probably not electing a Democrat statewide for the Senate anytime soon. Missouri is probably not going to elect a Democrat as the governor anytime soon, God willing, but it's probably not going to happen. In terms of winning re-election, Cori Bush, knocked off a longtime incumbent. She's doing fine in terms of re-election. In terms of what does she stand to gain from just getting some clout by manufacturing outrage on an issue? I don't think that's her.
Okay.
And if there's anyone better to speak to on that, it's her. And having listened to her,
I would love to talk to her.
yeah.
Do you think that she should? Just to clear the water and gain the trust in some people who doubt her.
Look, my man, I don't know that it would be productive to argue with people whose idea of political ethics.
I mean, these are how some people think, and it would help her if people were able to regain some trust.
Having knocked on doors for a lot of candidates, having made phone calls for a lot of candidates.
All right, but that's you doing the work for them. Now they also have to gain some credibility.
I have come across people who have this sort of disposition, and I have found that acting in good faith towards these people and acting like if you just explain what's going on, they will come to see reason, is making too much of a charitable assumption. And so sometimes I do not think that it is productive. I'm making this argument because I'm a college student with nothing the fuck better to do. But sometimes I have found that it is not the most productive thing to have members of Congress appealing to the good faith of people who would rather scream on Twitter and post angry memes rather than come out here and do the work.
I mean, those
with
people are angry because they're suffering, and they want their elected officials to do the things that they promise.
And I get that. I get being angry because of suffering. But very often, being angry because of suffering causes people to act in ways that hurt other people. Look, hurt people. That's the message. And if you're angry because you're in a tough spot, if you're angry because you know someone who's in a tough spot, and your reaction to that is to be reactive and to say, I'm going to lash out at the people that are out here doing the work and trying to pressure others to go do the work that we need to solve this issue, that's only making the situation worse. That's saying, I've lost my arm in an explosion. I'm blowing up something else so that other people suffer with me.
No, that's not what it is. It's calling out the person who It's calling out the person who caused the explosion. or whoever was complicit in the explosion.
The people out here, if you want to call out Nancy Pelosi for not whipping her votes well enough, that's totally valid. If when we find out who these people are, you want to go to their districts and tell every single motherfucker in their district, this person betrayed you, this person betrayed every homeless person in their district, that's productive. But if you want to come after the people, I'm not saying anyone here does, but if anyone wants to come after the people who are out here actually doing the work, suggesting that they're doing this out of cynicism, that they may
I think the only suggestion
that is ridiculous.
I think the only suggestion that some of the people watching would give is to, and it's the advice I give to everybody, even the people watching, is to always keep informing yourself. So I mean, I'll leave you like with this, like, would you agree to talk to some more like, for example, Frito-Lay workers, talk to homeless people, talk to people. No, I know, yeah, but okay, that's good. Keep doing that. Just get their perspective. Like, never stop getting their perspective. Ask them how they got to where they got, and always think critically. Like I think critically of everybody who I get my information from. Everybody's gonna have their flaws. And then that'll help you be more informed, including myself, because I don't just accept everything that everyone tells me. But yeah, man, I think we have some agreements. We obviously have some disagreements, but I appreciate you, being brave enough to step in camera and say your piece.
I appreciate you being here. Look, anything you can do to amplify this issue, get more people talking about it, get more people out here, that matters. Whatever we might disagree on, we're here for the people who are homeless and are going to become homeless as a result of what's going on right now. And anything you can do to stop that, that's more important than anything we talk about.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. So this channel, if you want to see it, it's called Frank Analysis with a C, FRANC Analysis. And my name is Franco. If you want, you can give your name. You don't have to.
Yeah, my name is Dylan. I'm an incoming law student at George Washington University.
Awesome.
So please come out.
You play soccer there?
No, this is both my parents went to Santa Barbara, so we have some old merch.
Oh, awesome, yeah.
So,
awesome. Have you played soccer?
In high school, but I'm not good enough for college ball.
Oh yeah. Same. I did like club college, but yeah, I wasn't gonna be committed for like college ball. It would have been a lot.
Yeah.
Like
did you stop?
I was in Towson University.
Towson?
Yeah, Towson.
Oh, Towson.
In Baltimore County.
Did you cut your stream?
No, it's gonna be ongoing. But yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, man. Yeah. Take care.